Hey guys, so I'm driving a 2023 F-150 that I picked up yesterday with 0 miles on it. Now it's got 551, and it's the 5-liter V8, similar to the F-150 I had, but the big difference here is this one doesn't have the tow package and the crazy low tow gears, so it is surprisingly efficient. On this tank so far of 100 miles, we've gotten 22.2 miles per gallon. That is pretty outstanding. I was getting like 17 in my truck, which was a 4-wheel drive with the lowest gear, so that's pretty cool. The transmission's a little clunky, just like my truck. It does some weird stuff, like first it gets kind of harsh, and when it downshifts from 10th to 8th for every bridge for some reason, and it goes to 8th, it's kind of jerky. But with the efficiency and how comfortable it is, I really can't complain too much about that. As far as wind noise and stuff goes, compared to my Ram, it is noisier. But my Ram was a higher trim that had, the acoustic glass and all that. This is just an XLT, I think. But it does have this big, beautiful center display. It's got the shifter that folds down with the blowjob mode button, which unfortunately doesn't do anything while you're driving, so that was an oversight. No, just kidding. But yeah, I like the screens. I like all the data. Let me show you some of the other ones. So here's trip 2. So this is since we left Orlando. The very first tank was this truck's break-in trip, and we still got 19.5 miles per gallon. Now it's averaged up to 20 on this tank. That's pretty impressive for the first tank of fuel through a vehicle. And it really goes to show that I don't understand why these companies make these V6 turbo trucks. This engine sounds great, it feels great, and it's pretty efficient, and it's gotta be simpler to make than having 2 turbos and all the associated turbo stuff. So, I don't know, manufacturers are on crack with these turbo motors. Just keep making V8s, guys. So another update on this excellent F-150. We've now put over 1,000 miles on it and cruising mostly at 75, 80 miles an hour, getting about 20 miles per gallon. I have been calculating the fuel myself, seeing how much it goes in it, dividing by the mileage, and it does lie a little bit. It says you're doing about half a mile per gallon better on the screen than you actually are. That's pretty close though, and when you consider there's some air that we're filling up at different pumps and stuff, it's probably, it's pretty accurate. One thing I just figured out is that this big, beautiful screen, but until just now, I wasn't able to get full screen maps. So what you can do down here is if you press this button, that'll let you do full screen Android Auto, but then usually you have another window here. But if you press maps again, it gives you a full screen map, which is just outstanding. Very good resolution on the old Google machine. That's a pretty good thing to have. And also, just the gas mileage is really good. It's been really comfortable and smooth and quiet. Great road trip truck. It's 2-wheel drive, so it doesn't have the bullshit front end where there's the vacuum operated wheel hubs that are disengaging and engaging at random times. I think if I was going to get another 2-wheel drive truck, it might be this. I don't know. This interior is definitely nicer than the interiors I had in my Silverados. Although I haven't seen the newest Silverado interior, but this is pretty good. It's not nearly as plasticky as my Ford. I mean, it is plasticky, but it's all thick plastic. It's not like the real thin, rickety, chintzy shit. It feels pretty quality in here, I'm not gonna lie. All right, so going to return this F-150 that I've kind of fallen in love with, despite the fact that I had such a terrible experience with my F-150 with a transmission failure at 1,700 miles. But, the reason that experience was so terrible wasn't because I had a mechanical issue. That happens with all brands. I got unlucky. I think the Ford tuning of the transmission was part of the problem, but the problem with Ford was it took them 3 months to even start working on my truck, and then they tried to do a bunch of the wrong things to fix the transmission. They tried all the cheap fixes. Let's, put an oil filter in the transmission. Let's reprogram the ECU, when it was obviously blown, and then they finally started trying to find one, and it took them another 2 months to find a transmission. So, long story short, I hated my F-150 not because it broke, because it took them too long to fix it, and I did not get good customer service while they were trying to fix it. But this thing is a rocket ship. I've got the traction control off right now, and I can just light the tires up and slide the truck sideways from 40 miles an hour. I mean, it feels like it's got more power than the Mustang GTs I've test drove many times. It's got a very good response. I just love a naturally aspirated motor, man. They're so much more fun to me than all the turbocharged little things we're trying to put in trucks these days. I definitely consider an F-150 with the V8 if it's still an option, because it's efficient, it sounds great, it's fun, it's fast. But I had such a bad customer service experience with 3 different dealerships that tried to fix it, and Ford Corporate was the worst. I've never dealt with a bigger bag of dicks in my entire life than Ford Corporate. I mean, just didn't want to help you, wanted to make excuses, didn't want to pay for your rental car. That's when I had to get a lawyer and limit law the vehicle. So because of that experience, I will not consider one of these, but if it wasn't for that, I might. The bed felt pretty solid with the factory Ford spray-in bed liner, which I also had on my truck. You kind of have to get that. Tailgate felt pretty solid, a lot of nice tie-down points. This is just an XLT, and the interior is very livable. I'd love to have air-conditioned seats, but these seats are decent. They're very comfortable and supportive, and I can tell you that for a fact because I have been in here for about 22 hours in the past 2 days while I drove it 1,400 miles. So, yeah, not a bad ride. That's for sure. It's a pretty sweet truck.